Go and get married. Go and get married!
My name is Elena Whitmore, and I was 36 years old when I realized something dangerous. The people who laugh the loudest at your life are usually the ones most afraid of it. It was New Year's Eve in Chicago. I was sitting at my parents' dining table, already counting the minutes until I could leave, when my brother decided to turn me into the night's entertainment. He leaned back in his chair, lifted his glass, and smiled, that same smug smile he'd had since we were kids. 36 and still not married, he said loudly. Must be rough going into another year alone, huh? A few people laughed, then more, until the entire table joined in, like it was normal, like it was expected, like I was the joke. My mother smiled weakly, my father said nothing, and my brother's wife stared at her plate like she didn't want to be part of it, but didn't know how to stop it either. For a second, I almost did what I had always done: smile, let it slide, pretend it didn't hurt. But something in me was done that night, completely done. I set my glass down, looked him straight in the eyes, and said, "Don't worry about my life. I've been married for 5 years." The silence that followed was absolute. Before I continue, take a second to like this video and subscribe to Fate and Truth Stories if you enjoy powerful, real-life storytelling. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now? Now let me take you back to how my brother became the one person in that house everyone protected, no matter what he did. If you had met my family back then, you would have noticed the pattern immediately. My brother Ryan Whitmore was the center of everything, the loud one, the charming one, the easy child, the one people described as a natural leader, even when he hadn't actually done anything worth leading. He filled rooms, told jokes, made people comfortable, and somehow that was always enough. I was the opposite: quiet, focused, serious. I didn't cause problems, so I got less attention. If Ryan brought home average grades, it was celebrated. If I brought home perfect ones, it was expected. If he succeeded at something small, it became a family story. If I achieved something difficult, it was acknowledged, then forgotten. By adulthood, those roles were permanent. Ryan got married early, bought a house in the suburbs, had 2 kids, built the kind of life my parents understood and loved because it was visible, simple, easy to explain. This is success. My life didn't look like that. I went to law school, moved to Boston, built a career in corporate law, high-stakes deals, long hours, pressure most people would run from, but I loved it because it was mine. Every promotion, every win, every deal I closed, I earned. The problem? None of it mattered at home. I remember one night I told them about a major acquisition I had just closed. It had taken months, late nights, endless negotiations. I was proud. My mother nodded for less than a minute, then turned to Ryan. "Did you finalize that backyard renovation yet?" Conversation over, just like that. Another time, I mentioned I was invited to speak on a legal panel. My mother smiled politely and said, "That's nice, but people understand weddings and babies more than all that complicated legal stuff." That sentence stayed with me because what she really meant was my life didn't feel real to them. And Ryan, he noticed that and used it. He would joke that I was too intimidating for men, that I was married to my job, that no one wanted a woman like me. He always said it with a smile, like it was harmless, but it never was. And no one stopped him once. So eventually, I stopped sharing, stopped explaining, stopped trying. I still showed up to holidays, still sat at the table, still played my role, but I gave them less and less of my real life. And they assumed the worst, that I was alone, that I had nothing, that I had failed. The truth was, I'd just stopped handing my life to people who didn't know how to respect it. And not long after that, I met the one person who changed everything. His name was Adrian Cole, and I met him in a glass conference room on a Thursday afternoon that was supposed to be forgettable. He was the CEO on the other side of a deal I was leading, calm, sharp, focused, not intimidated, not performative, just present. When I spoke, he listened. When I challenged him, he respected it. When I pushed back, he didn't get defensive. He leaned in. That was new for me. What started as professional respect turned into conversations, then dinners, then something deeper, something real. He asked me questions no one in my family ever had. Why I chose law, what success meant to me, what pressure felt like, what I actually wanted. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to shrink to be accepted. 6 months later, he asked me to marry him, and this time I didn't hesitate. But what we decided next changed everything. 6 months after Adrian proposed, we got married. Not in a ballroom, not in front of a crowd, not in a way my family would approve of. We got married in a quiet vineyard just outside Napa Valley. No drama, no pressure, no audience waiting to judge. Just a small group of people who actually knew us. His parents, his sister, a few close friends. That was it. I wore a simple white dress. Adrian looked at me like I was the only person in the world. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. Not my success, not my worth, not my choices. After the ceremony, his father raised a glass and said something I will never forget. We're not welcoming Elena because of who she married. We're welcoming her because of who she is. That moment broke something open inside me because I had spent years in a family where love always felt like comparison, like competition, like approval had to be earned and could be taken away. That night, Adrian and I made a decision. We wouldn't tell my family. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Not out of spite, out of protection. Because I already knew what would happen. They would question it, pick it apart, compare it, turn it into something small, the same way they had done with everything else in my life. And I wasn't willing to risk that, not with something this important. So I stayed quiet. At work, I kept my name. With my family, I stayed single. And for 5 years, I lived a double life. In Boston, I had everything. A husband, a home, a peaceful, stable life. Late dinners in the kitchen, weekend trips, quiet mornings, a love that didn't need validation. And then I would go back home and become someone else. The unmarried daughter, the career woman, the one who failed. And they never questioned it because it made them comfortable, especially Ryan. Because as long as I stayed the unsuccessful one, he could stay the successful one. But the truth, his life wasn't as perfect as it looked. The cracks were there. You just had to look closely. He jumped from one business idea to another, always chasing the next big thing, always talking about opportunities that never quite worked out, always needing attention. And sometimes he came to me for help. Quietly, privately, asking about contracts, deals, legal advice. And every time I helped him. But in public, he still needed me to be the joke. That was the dynamic, and I understood it, until that New Year's Eve. Because that night, something was already wrong. Ryan had been in a bad mood all week. One of his big deals was falling apart. My mother was trying too hard to act cheerful. My father was tense. His wife looked exhausted. And then I walked in, alone, like always, and Ryan relaxed, because to him, nothing had changed. I was still the easy target, still the safe joke, still the version of me he had created, until he raised that glass and made his mistake. 36 and still not married. But this time, I didn't stay quiet. I've been married for 5 years. Silence. Ryan laughed. You expect us to believe that? I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I simply unlocked my phone and placed it on the table. Photos. Wedding photos. Napa Valley. Adrian holding my hand, our home in Boston, vacations, holidays, 5 years of a life they never knew existed. My mother looked stunned. My father looked embarrassed. His wife looked at him, slowly. And Ryan, for the first time in his life, he didn't control the room. So what? He snapped. You kept a whole marriage secret just to pull this stunt? I looked at him calmly. No, I said, I kept it secret because I knew exactly what this family would do to anything good in my life. No one interrupted me. Not this time. I told them everything. How I met Adrian, how we built a life, how I stopped sharing because every conversation became about Ryan, his needs, his life, his ego. My father asked quietly, "Why didn't you tell us?" And I told him the truth. Because every time I try to be seen, someone makes it about him. That silence was different, because this time they couldn't ignore it. Ryan tried to fight back, said I was dramatic, said it was just a joke, tried to turn himself into the victim. But something had changed. His wife looked at him and said quietly, "Was it just a joke?" And for the first time in our lives, my father said, "Enough, Ryan." That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. I left that night feeling lighter, not because I won, but because I finally stopped shrinking. But Ryan, he couldn't handle it. Within weeks, everything started falling apart. The deal he'd been bragging about collapsed. Another opportunity? Gone. His behavior got worse. More drinking, more anger, more mistakes. And then his wife left. She took the kids, filed for divorce, and told him something he never expected to hear. I don't want my daughters growing up around a man who needs to tear women down to feel important. That was the beginning of the end. His reputation fell apart. His business failed. Even my parents stopped defending him. For the first time in his life, he had no one to protect him. And he blamed me, said I ruined his life. But the truth? I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped being small. And when I did, everything he built on top of that illusion collapsed. Months later, I brought Adrian home, not to prove anything, not to impress anyone,